It's so nice to see you tonight, Governor Paterson.
Well, thank you. It's great to see you, Dominic, and I dare say you have interviewed me as much as anyone else over the years, maybe with the exception of Fred Dicker. We'll have to count him up one day.
Well, thank you, Governor. But let's go ahead and get to the issues. Let's start with the news of the day, if you will, and that's Republican County Executive, as you know, someone you know very well, Rob Astorino, running for governor. If you will, Governor, take off your partisan hat and assess Mr. Astorino as a candidate.
Rob Astorino is a very bright man. He's a great talk show host. He's one of those who did talk radio before he went into government. And I think he's a little bit better talk radio show host than me. I'm a little jealous of him. But he knows all the issues. He's not a Republican that's going to strike fear into the hearts of Democrats. But he's not going to win this election. And I know there's a poll out that says Governor Cuomo's favorability is 42%. I think that's just people's general dissatisfaction with government. Everybody's poll numbers are down. But you cannot take away from Governor Cuomo the lowering of taxes for business, marriage equality, a new pension tier 6 pension reform, education reform, support for the charter schools, $500 million support for the public schools. I could go on and on. He's lowered the temperature of discord in Albany, passed every budget on time. I see him as an overwhelming victor this year.
So, Governor Paterson, you believe Mr. Astorino can be governor of New York, just not now up against Andrew Cuomo?
One day, I think he's got all the tools to become a governor. Right now, if I were him, I would stick with talk radio.
But Governor Paterson, Mr. Astorino came just this morning to the heart of the Bronx, Democratic country.
Well, I gave him credit. He's a very smart man. If you're running as a Republican, the best way to get attention is to go into a stronghold of Democratic support and let people know that you'll be inclusive and that you'll represent all the people. And I think that he will handle himself with that same positive decorum through the campaign. I like him very much. But he's running against a man who's done some things that haven't been done in this state in 50 years. He lowered taxes to a rate lower than existed before Governor Cuomo was born, and that was 60 years ago. He passed 3 straight budgets on time. I don't think that's been done since the Peloponnesian Wars. I'm just saying there's a difference between good and great. The future will tell what Mr. Astorino can be. But right now, Governor Cuomo's been great.
Governor Paterson, would you agree with this assessment? If you had appointed Caroline Kennedy to the Senate, you would still be the governor of New York.
Well, then I guess it's clear that I would never be the governor of New York today because Caroline Kennedy dropped out of consideration a couple of days before I made a choice. So I never got to consider her among the other candidates I considered. The winner, I think, has been excellent in spite of what was said at the time, Kirsten Gillibrand.
Governor, why did you pass on Caroline Kennedy, and how close did you come to appointing her?
You know, I really don't know because by the time I made a final decision, what I really liked about Senator Gillibrand was she was an upstater. She would become the youngest U.S. senator right after a year when young people finally voted. They got the constitutional amendment changed in 1972, but young people had not gone to the polls until the 2008 election. So I thought that was a good thing to represent. And she was, of course, a woman like Hillary Clinton, and only 15 other women were serving in the Senate at the time. And that's not nearly the representation that we should have. So she, in addition, indisputably understands the economy as well as any other U.S. senator right now and did then. And that's why I appointed her.
Governor Paterson, the conventional wisdom at the time said Eliot Spitzer puts you on his ticket as lieutenant governor. Hillary Clinton's running for president. She's elected president, leaving an open Senate seat, and Spitzer appoints you to the U.S. Senate. So why didn't you just appoint yourself to that Senate seat to begin with?
Well, conventional wisdom was right insofar as what perhaps the overall plan was when I came to run with Governor Spitzer, but the Senate was deadlocked to the point that only in the last days before Majority Leader Malcolm Smith was sworn in 2009 was that resolved, because remember they had those three senators, what do they call themselves, the three amigos, and now they're known as the three inmates because they're all in prison. They were bouncing back and forth like tennis balls at Wimbledon, trying to get the best deal from the Republicans and the Democrats. And later on that year, two of them actually moved over and became Republicans. One became the majority leader of the Republican conference because he switched his vote and became a Republican that year. I knew that they were sitting back waiting for an opportunity to wreak more havoc on the state with what they call reform, but was really corruption. And I was not going to let them get a chance at controlling who was going to become the next governor, because if I appointed myself to the U.S. Senate, the majority leader of the Senate, since there was no lieutenant governor, would become the acting governor. And I thought they would be right back in the thick of it and would probably be billionaires by the time that resulted. And I wasn't going to allow that corruption to take place. And that's also why, when they did finally do it in deadlocking the Senate later that year, I appointed a lieutenant governor, and in spite of a vast public dicta that I wouldn't be able to sustain that appointment, the Court of Appeals upheld my decision.